Hey guys, this is Jerry. I have a very special guest, D.W. Brown, actor, acting coach, and a jiu-jitsu purple belt under Rickson Gracie. So welcome, D.W.
Hi.
So I think the first question, just to get started with a fun one, what does D.W. stand for?
David William.
David William. So, okay, David William Brown. You're an actor, and eventually you transitioned into acting coaching. When did you kind of get the creative bug?
Oh, well, the acting bug I got very early on in life. I went through I guess I was sort of acting out and being a discipline problem, so they sent me, I don't know if my idea, somebody else's idea, they sent me to, this children's acting group. And so I first got into it when I was very young. Then I landed into this thing called the Tucson Teen Theater, because I grew up in Tucson. It was crazy. It was this method acting maniac guy from New York. And I don't know why he came to Tucson, but he took on these teens. And so it was this really down and dirty. We could swear, we could smoke, but we had to be there on time, like super disciplined in one way, and then really, free and chaotic. So that's why I really got the bug that way. Then I came out to Los Angeles and got in a theater group, and I was watching their labs where they were having writers and directors do stuff, and I thought, hey, maybe I'd like to do that. So then I got maybe gravitate a little bit more into the directing and writing than just pure acting. And bring you up to date here with this studio I'm in is I met my wife Joanne Baron making a movie together, this silly National Lampoon movie called The Joy of Sex. High school teen kind of movie. And so we got involved romantically, and she was teaching this technique that I teach called the Meisner technique in New York. We got involved romantically, and again, I've gotten involved in directing, and so it was a nice marriage to class as an actor, and then I started studying it, got interested in that technique, and started studying the technique, and then
So it sounds like when you first started acting, even on screen, you weren't necessarily doing the Meisner method. That came a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, I was a Strasberg actor. I worked with Lee Strasberg, and I was, we were supposed to, be your character 24/7. I didn't necessarily take it that far, but that was my. I could articulate the difference between the technique. You think your audience would be interested, so I was this Strasberg actor. As at the actor studio doing stuff, and then I became a fan of the Meisner technique, which is I think is cleaner, but actually more effective and getting you deeper, really, and doing what it is acting.
Yeah. So for viewers watching, how I got in touch with DW was that he was in one of my favorite movies, Mischief, and I interviewed Chris Nash. By the way, Chris Nash says hi. So yeah. I interviewed Chris Nash, and then I was like, wait a minute, why does D.W. Brown sound familiar? Because two of my neighbors take classes under D.W. and Joanne Baron. So I was like, whoa, this is Kenny from Mischief. So let's talk a little bit about Mischief. How did you get that role?
I auditioned for it, Mel Damsky, the director, I think I went in, and read for him, and then I had to wait for a month, like these painful stories you hear. My wife just went through one of these. She had to wait for a couple of weeks, even maybe a month. She was in the Halloween Ends, and it took her like 3 weeks to find out whether they were going to actually use her for the part. Same thing for me. And then me and Chris, we all went to Columbus, Ohio, and shot it in a little town outside of Columbus, Ohio, called Nelsonville.
And what was the funniest kind of behind the scenes little scoop that you have that you tell people if people ever ask you about Mischief?
They wanted me to get used to driving that car because I had to drive it in the movie. So that was a gas because I had that classic car I had, 56 Chevy, really tricked out beautifully. So they had two of them because they were going to wreck one of them. That was my car. I got to use it all the time. So that was pretty cool.
And I assume the movie you met your wife on was probably one of your favorite acting projects. What are two other your favorite acting projects that always come to mind when people say, hey, name the top three?
Well, I was in Fast Times at Ridgemount High, and that's tough to beat because that's such a classic. And it was just great. It was great being on it. I've met Sean Penn. He was Strasberging it. He was wanted to be called this character Spicoli. So I never met him when he wasn't Spicoli when he was working on the movie. Subsequent to that, I became friends with him, and I taught his wife for many years, Robin Wright. And I go and I see the movie. And that song, the first time I ever heard the song, I think, as far as I know, first time anybody heard that Jackson Browne song, She Must Be Somebody's Baby. And this is nice. They really did a good job with this thing. And I can't say that I knew at the time it was going to be a classic, but I could tell it was a good film. And just had that, that energy, which was great. We shot a love scene, me and Jennifer Jason Leigh, in a baseball dugout. And it rained. Rain was not predicted, but it rained, and so nobody was ready for the rain. So what they'll do on a movie set is they'll take hefty bags and make ponchos out of them, right? So they cut 3 holes, and so they put so everybody in the crew is wearing these ponchos made out of big black hefty bags, and then holding them over their head. I'm with Jennifer. It's such a weird thing to do a love scene anyway, but they were doing it MOS, which means no sound. So while I'm like getting it on with her, the DP is going, kiss her neck. No, more up towards her ear. And that is such a psychedelic experience by itself. And then the director goes, cut. And I look up and there are all these dudes in these this weird village of the damned, kind of like these people in plastic bags watching me. So that's burned into my brain. So that was a great movie. I did. Mischief was pretty cool because we got to live together in that area, in that town. So.
And I guess this is the perfect time to talk about the joy of sex too. So, you met your wife on that set. Now, who discovered whom first? Who noticed whom first? Do you remember?
I think she would say that she discovered me on that. I was preoccupied, and she was just kind of. I had come in, and they're doing wardrobe on me, and she was already set. And so somebody had told her, "Hey, your love interest is here." And so she came in to scope me out there, and then I just noticed her in the back of the room, but. So that was the intro, but it didn't take long at all. We had magic pretty right away. Joanne and I were married 37 years.
Yeah, congrats. And I think this is a very interesting question for you too, because you two are married, you two are working actors / you two also have a business together. That sounds like an ultimate success story. Now, how do you guys kind of balance work and relationship and passions and creativity and everything?
A small business owner, it's you never punch the clock. Joanne takes on most of that. She does teach what we call the master class 3 times a year, maybe sometimes 4 times a year, but that's just 2 weekends. So mostly she just runs this thing, and she trains the teachers, and I let her kind of do that thing and make the decisions on that. And then when there are certain things that she wants to involve me in, I'll get pulled in. But I can devote myself to my classes. I mean, I give you relationship advice. That's a whole other kind of thing. All right, I hit you with that. Always be dating. Keep the romance alive, and that sensitivity. And you got to work on it. You just got to think this is an investment. People will say people who are happy in their careers and unhappy in their marriages are less happy than people who are happy in their marriages and unhappy in their careers. That more and more people are like getting wise to this. That it's these relationships that you make these investments in that are going to determine the quality of your life. And so it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. You have to deal with somebody else's psyche, but it's about staying available, sharing, and staying romantic. Staying romantic. My big relationship advice I'll say to people is that for the guys, your job is to keep it romantic. For women, it's your job to keep the guys feeling competent. And other than that, it's work, and maybe even you have professionals step in.
Yeah. I love that advice. And I think it's a good segue to talk about the Baron Brown studio. And so you guys have been around for quite a few years, right? Quite a long time.
Yeah. So 35 years at least, yeah, now. So this is this program. We were here in Santa Monica. We've been in Santa Monica now for whatever it is, 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
because we were originally on the 3rd Street Promenade, and then over here at 320 Wilshire, and now we're at Lincoln in Arizona, just a few blocks away from that location here. So we'll stay close to the ocean now here. And it's the most serious training program. We have we're trying to instill in people this genuine discipline. So there's no lateness, and if you're absent, you got to have a bona fide absence, like a genuine illness or a professional job that you're doing. So we try to run it like the industry is, extremely, extraordinarily competitive. So it's very structured. People come twice a week, and mostly what it is, the first year is this exercise that we do. And it's the improvisational exercises. They're not like the groundlings where it's like, how silly can you be? And there's a thing in groundlings called yes and, where you have to go along with whatever they tell you. So somebody comes up and says, oh, look at my little bird. You can't go. You have nothing in your hand. Play along with it. Well, we don't do that. We anything information that comes up, any information that's in the interchange is either shared before you act, so I know you've got a brother Robert. Because if they start, they go, Robert. I know I don't know Robert. So I know the expression that I find so profound in acting is the actor needs to know what they know and don't know what they don't know. So you can't anticipate that you're going to open the door and find your dad dead on the floor. You've read the scene, so you'll know that's what happened. So it's your job to make it look like something is really happening. And then know what you know means I'm not going to just on the fly pretend I know who your brother Robert is. I will have had to have done a daydream. Okay, Robert is this lovely guy. I saw him, save a child's life. So that endears me to him. And then when Robert gets referred to in the scene, I go, Robert, how is Robert? If I do a daydream that Robert's a prick and I saw him be cruel to a child, then my line reading is totally different. Yeah, how is Robert? But I've established that before I ever started acting, before they said action, before it went up. So I know what I know about Robert. So we do these improvisational exercises. And so you can anticipate, you don't know what your partner's going to drop on you, so you're giving people the real feeling. We haven't touched on the martial arts aspect of this. I find it extremely consistent with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I've taken. People say that it's that kind of training, now especially MMA, perhaps, but that kind of training is very good for actual life combat, because when you're grappling, you're at full out. You're not like pulling your punches. In gi or no gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're not like slamming people with your elbow, because you can't. Somebody can't survive that, but you were training otherwise. I'm really trying to break this guy's arm. So what we're doing in here in the classroom is we're trying to give you, that is the real experience. If you're acting opposite Tom Hardy or Michael Shannon or somebody, they're not going to pull their punches. You need to be really able to get in there and do it. So these exercises are supposed to replicate what that feeling is going to be like when you don't know what they're going to say, and you're completely playing off the moments that you're getting from them. And I say I get comfortable with the jiu-jitsu too, in that if you know a submission hold, you can beat somebody who may be much more athletic than you are, much more talented as a fighter, but they just don't know that joint lock. And so in the same way with this training program, you know how to work off another person. You can be more effective than somebody who's potentially a lot more talented than you are, because you know what to do. It's not some mystery thing. The thing itself may be mysterious, art, life, mysterious, but we know how to cultivate an orange tree or corn, and we know now pretty firmly with this technique how to cultivate an actor. put them through this obstacle course. What I started saying is, you could maybe be a good actor and not be able to do one of these Meissner exercises, but there's no way you could be good at a Meissner exercise and not be good as an actor. It's just all the skills. It's just all the coordination, all the flexibility, all that imagination, all that stuff that you need to do the thing that is acting, and you're stressed. And it's so great because nobody can beat this exercise. It is impossible to fully achieve it. So I always have notes for people. I always can tell even the best actor, I go, yeah, but you know what you could have done? And I'll say, I'm like Phil Jackson. He was coaching Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan at the height of their powers. And the same way I can coach anybody. I put them through this obstacle course and go, no, see, you didn't get your knees high enough, so you didn't hit every one of those tires. Because it's impossible. The thing is just impossible to beat. It's just like Zen-like, can you be fully in the moment, totally present in the moment.
Yeah. This is great because we'll come back to the Meissner method. This brings up a good segue, which is, so tell me about your jiu-jitsu journey, and then we'll tie it back to Meissner because I have a question about jiu-jitsu and Meissner. But tell me more about jiu-jitsu. How did you get into it? How did you meet Rickson, etc.?
Well, I was over right by where Rickson's studio was at Pico and Sepulveda over there, and it was like everybody else when Rickson Gracie went through all those like guys who weighed 100 pounds more than him, and people were like, "Wow!" A friend of mine said, "Hey, you know they've got a studio like walking distance from you." So that's what I did. I went over there to the Gracie studio. It's not there anymore, and then moved several times, and I stayed with them in the Palisades. They were in the Palisades for a while, on Wilshire for a while. So I got my blue belt at that location, and then I guess it was they moved to the Palisades, and Rickson got interested in acting. It was his studio. It was always Rickson's studio, and I'd seen him in there a few times, but rarely. I never rolled with him. I never trained with him until like after I got my blue belt, and then he got interested in acting, and I don't know how he somehow knew that I was an acting teacher, and so I would teach him acting, and then he would train me, and so I trained with him, and eventually got my purple belt. I have a story about the first time I ever trained with Rickson. You know about Rickson, right? You know that he is like, again, kind of the Michael Jordan. If he was just too early, to get the kind of fame that he might have gotten, because I would say, like, a lot of people, maybe if they've been raised in that family, would have been jiu-jitsu champions, learning it from that age, from Helio. But Rickson had just this gift. Do you know what would happen? Like that Rickson like never lost a tournament. And what would you say the percentage of you've seen tournament jiu-jitsu? What would you say the percentage of matches that end in a submission is? One in not many, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like 20% probably. Most of the time, people win by points.
Yeah, of course. And so I'd say I think 20 is high. I think it could be closer to 10%. Rickson won every match by submission that he ever entered into. I guess what would happen is he would take a guy down, take him to the mat, and the crowd would start chanting in Portuguese, 30, 29, 28, because he was going to submit this guy within 30 seconds. Just unbelievable. So the first time I ever rolled with him, you just like, it's exactly like, with any black belt I would wrestle with mostly, but everything you do is wrong. It's like playing a good chess player. You wish you could take back every move you ever make, because he's always, but the thing about him especially, and I rolled a few black belts, that he had this like intuition about the human body, like just that step ahead of you. So he'd go, "Oh, you want to go this way? Okay, we can go this way." And then you're like, "No, I don't want to go that way anymore." And then you go, "Okay, we'll take you this way." And it's just enough to make you do exactly the wrong thing, right? So now he's got you can't pull your arm back. Just, so I trained with him in this way, and it was really wild, and 40 minutes or whatever it was. And I went home and I took a nap. And I must have been napping for like half an hour, 40 minutes. And I woke up out of this nap in this state, and it was like my deeper animal self was going like, "Oh my God, you were just encountering like a grizzly bear or something. This guy could have killed you any second. The whatever that like warrior energy. He's a very special person, Rickson. He's not just a jujitsu guy. He's a very, I don't know what you would say, spiritual, but a kind of transcendent person. So I was absorbing that, and then in my sleep state, I guess it like I came in contact with it. But a lovely, lovely guy, and so that's been my experience. And I got my purple belt over there when they were in the Palisades.
And have you explored other martial arts too? Or are you mostly doing jujitsu?
Yeah, all Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and mostly with a gi. I never did a no gi tournament. I did maybe half a dozen tournaments, and I never did no gi. Um, no, I'll punch a heavy bag and stuff like that if it's around. But no, that's the only one.
I see. And now this kind of ties back to the Meisner question I had was, as you kind of got further in your jiu-jitsu technique, did it change the way you taught Meisner at all?
Yeah, I would imagine it would in some way because there again, like I say, a good technique is consistent. I can nothing that I could say. Nothing I could articulate though. I don't think.
I see. So I think that's even a question I can ask more generally. Like, has the instruction, because you guys have had the studio for many, many years, for decades, so have you guys sort of evolved as you kind of teach more actors, you yourself grow as actors, etc.? Or is it kind of mostly sticking to the same system that you learned initially?
Yeah, it's mostly sticking to the same system. My wife is pretty maniacal about that. So anybody who anybody who teaches here trains to teach, and she really puts them through a rigorous system. Most people who teach Meisner, they're teaching it from what they remember when they took it, and so it's really consistent. We may be the most consistently Meisner, whatever you call it, most purest Meisner that is existent. I don't know what's going to happen when we if we shut it down. I guess one of our students will carry on, but it's hard to imagine it happening without Joanne because she's just so like it's her religious mission to keep this thing going. But no, yeah. So we haven't found that it's just this program that takes you from the very beginning, most simple beginning. And then the last thing we do is Shakespeare. And I'll say it's like Harvard Medical School. When you're through here, you're aware of all the different kinds of medicine. And yes, you could go specialize in neurology, or in our case, you could specialize in the work of the Groundlings, or in Shakespeare, you specialize. But you're going to get introduced to the canon, all the styles, if you will, that you might encounter as an actor.
Wow. Another question I had while I was listening to you. So, we talked about people who might have taken more your traditional type of comedy improv classes. Do you find there's any type of student from any discipline that comes in to take your classes that you tend to have an easier time teaching? And then the flip side, is there any type of student that you guys have a harder time teaching just because of prior, whatever experiences, prior training, etc.?
I wouldn't probably lay it on the training. We have this period, it's happened quite a bit, where people come in and they say, well, I've taken the Meisner before, and then they'll work and go, that's not how we teach it. And it can be a little bit problematic, perhaps even injurious in some ways, if it's not taught well. I just heard this story again from Jennifer Lawrence went to an acting teacher. Gosh, the guy's name escaped me. He does he does Yellowstone now. That guy, he's directed a lot of films. But anyway, somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. But he was an acting teacher, and he told Jennifer Lawrence, "You shouldn't be taking acting training." She was like 12 or whatever she was, a little kid, and he said, "Don't go to any acting classes." And it's sadly true that acting classes can be problematic. That most of what the work is, and I actually had the same experience. I talked to the little girl who was in, not a little girl anymore, but was in Interstellar, and I ran into her, and I said to her mother, who was with her, I said, don't let her take like a conventional acting class, because impose this sort of idea about what acting is, but children have an innate ability to do it. They're like phenomenal children actors. The little boy who's in Sixth Sense, see, like Dakota Fanning in Man on Fire, just unbelievable performances that children can give. So most of what the work is to get you to go back to being like a child. Like Picasso said, it took me a lifetime to paint like a child. So certain acting ideas that people have can be problematic to that if they come into the class. But it's so clean, it's so, in a way, just obvious that it works, that it doesn't take that long for people to give it up, their old ideas about it. So I guess that's the answer to your question is that no, they're more difficult personality types than it is that they come from training programs. And we'll tell people who are older, do it, because you're still fresh. You don't have maybe like somebody, in their later part of their life, will go, is it too late for me to get, become an actor? And I'll go, no, because you know what? You have that kind of freshness about you. I used an analogy of George Foreman. I said, George Foreman was the heavyweight champion, the oldest heavyweight champion we've ever had, but that's because he quit boxing for like 15 years. So he stayed, he had that freshness about him and wasn't getting punched in the head so much. And I'll say that about somebody you haven't been, phoning in fake performances. Maybe you're an older person, but you haven't been beaten up by the world of acting and auditioning. And so maybe you can bring something fresh to it if you get this technique, which is just so foolproof. It just is so effective.
And it sounds like this is just something that anyone that wants to do acting in the LA area should check out. And I guess this is a perfect time to ask logistics. Like, if someone is interested in attending your acting course, are they able to sit in on a class first? Or is the method more like, okay, you have to commit. You can't just kind of half-ass it. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we do it just like Sandy did, Sanford High did it. There's no auditing, so you're not going to have somebody's agent in the back row. And we allow auditing at the level of work that you've already done. So you have like a lifetime free pass to come in and watch class as long as you've been there. You can't watch classes that are ahead of you, but any class that was at the level of the work before you, you're able to watch. But no, we don't allow auditing, so it is a kind of like leap of faith that people, but we have such a great track record, as does Meisner, and it isn't that challenging to but it can be weird when people get going doing it. They go, the repetition exercise. You know what the repetition exercise is? Is
that the eyes, you have eyes, I have eyes thing, or is that something different?
About that, but it's this exercise, which first when it starts off, it could be this like, what the hell would this have to do with acting? And I'll always reassure my students, this is not an experimental technique. It has a 100-year almost now track record, so this is not experimental. But I'll tell you how the repetition exercise works. Stanislavski's philosophy, what he said that was the linchpin, is the source of an actor's inner life is the object upon which they put their attention. That so I'll say, like, if right now a mountain lion came through that door, I would give a certain kind of performance related to that's a mountain lion and it's looking hostile and then right at me. So I'm going to give one kind of performance. If the mountain lion is like got frothy blood around its mouth and it's curling up in the corner, I give a different performance. If I release a puppy into the room, it's a totally different performance. So I'm going to be working off the puppy, the mountain lion, or in most cases, of course, it's an actor opposite of me. And I'm going to be locked in on what I'm getting from them. And so this is the technique. Really very simple, but very difficult to do, because if you do it, you become transparent and people can see what you're really all about. So some part of us wants to guard and protect the image, so I can't be fully invested. Now, if it's a mountain lion, I don't give a damn what people think of me, because I'm so worried about that thing sinking its teeth into my neck. So I give up my self-consciousness. So that's what you have to do, is not be so concerned about what the audience thinks of you, Leave the audience alone and put your attention on this object outside yourself. And that's it. And then I train people to do that under stress. But the repetition exercise that this starts off with is to guarantee that somebody's in the moment. So I'm in the moment, you put your attention on me, that means you're going to be in the moment. So if I repeat the last thing that you said, it means I'm listening to you and I'm engaging with you. So I'm not just repeating robotically. So Jerry, what would you say about me if I walked into a restaurant? What would you say? What would you say? Well, this guy looks. What would you say?
I would say this guy's wearing a plaid shirt.
So then I go. You just say you're wearing a plaid shirt.
Yeah, you're wearing a plaid shirt.
Well, I repeat that not by going you're wearing a plaid shirt robotically. I repeat it, confirming what you have said to me. So then I go, I'm wearing a plaid shirt, and then you repeat it again. All right, I don't know why I have to say that again, but all right, you're wearing a plaid shirt. And then I go, I'm wearing a plaid shirt. And the problem can be is people get robotic. I'm wearing a plaid shirt. I'm wearing a plaid shirt. And that's not going to help your acting at all. In fact, there's an issue in acting called being mechanical. And if the work isn't taught well, it can like reinforce mechanicalness. I'm wearing a plaid shirt. I need to repeat it in this fresh way. And if you said that, I would have my opinion about it. I don't know if you could read my opinion. So do it again, Jerry.
Mm-hmm. You're wearing a plaid shirt.
I'm wearing a plaid shirt. What did I just tell you with my behavior, Jerry?
Yeah, you were almost either dismissive or kind of confrontational.
That's right. So what I'm telling you, and this is what you're going to get better at if you do the work, is you thought that was a stupid thing for me to say. And you could say that.
Oh.
Because I'm wearing a plaid shirt. What a boneheaded, obvious thing to say. If you said to me, I like your shirt, then I'd maybe go, you like my shirt. That'd be a different meaning. If you go, that's a crummy shirt, I go, this is a crummy shirt. And I repeat responsively whatever it is the thing that you said. So then I go, so if I go to you, Jerry, I go, I'm wearing a plaid shirt, then I'm the instructor to go, is Jerry going to react to this guy just giving him that sour face? And you can't go, you're wearing a plaid shirt. You got to go, you're wearing a plaid shirt. Or you could change the repetition and go, don't give me a hard time. And then I'm going to go, don't give you a hard time. Don't give me a hard time. Don't give you a hard time. Stop brushing it off, DW. Stop brushing it off, DW. And so that's what you do. You can make a change or repeat, but we use this repetition to keep people in contact, because mostly what people want to do, I study this stuff more and more. Most people are like all about their left brain and labeling things and coming up with conversation. Well, it is plaid, trying to explain themselves and justify themselves and making conversation. And where we want you to live is purely on what are they doing? How do I feel about it? What is that I'm getting right now? How do I feel about that right now? And I'll tell people, if you think you've got it, you're wrong, because now it's something else. Those who stand in the midst of the struggle and say I have it only prove they've lost it. So you're always moving after, what is that? What is that? And not just, what is that? What is that? Again, people who take Meisner and it's not so great, not as full as I think it ought to be taught, they'll go, you think that's a stupid thing I said? And they'll just identify it without having their opinion. You think that's a stupid thing I said? And they'll just go, you thought that was stupid. You're getting angry. Or they'll make an announcement even. I'm feeling uncomfortable with this. And I don't think that's helpful in the acting at all. That you want to be the way you are with a dog. I'm using my language with my dog, but I'm going, oh, stop it. What? What the hell is wrong with you? I'm coming from here. I'm not going, look, you know that you can't do that with my shoe. I'm not explaining myself. I'm coming from my stomach. So even if I'm playing an intelligent character, I don't play them intelligently. I connect to my stomach, and then whatever the writer gives me to say, it might come out intelligently or unintelligent. It doesn't matter to me. I'm playing the moment. You touch on something. You said every actor, might consider this. I say people will say not just actors should consider this. There's this genius guy. I listen to hours of stuff on YouTube. Yuval Harari. He wrote a book called *Sapiens*, and he's a futurist. And I heard a guy talking to him saying, I got a 16-year-old boy. What should I tell him to study? And this guy goes, I can't tell you. because things are going to be changing so much with AI and so forth in the future. I can't tell you. You got to tell your boy he's going to be in school his whole life because things are going to be changing. You just got to be. You won't just learn your carpentry and be able to do that, right? It's going to want to have emotional intelligence. And he said, I don't know how to tell you how to get that. And I was like, do a Meisner program because it teaches you to get into your, I said, my stomach or the right brain. Teaches you to not just be about the information, because we have computers that are going to be great at that, but the emotional intelligence is what you can increase. I don't mean increase your access to from doing the program. So this is the kind of thing people say everybody should do the work. People say it saves their lives. I mean, they'll say it in sort of a big way. I got my own voice, and I lived my best life because I, was true to myself. But people say it changed their lives in a moment, and the reaction time is better. And being able to read people, like in criminal situations. Went home, there was a guy in her apartment, burglarizing her. Said, feel the panic coming over her and the scream building. And then she said, no, I need to play the moments with this guy. And she said, I plugged in and I could see how scared he was. And she said, I talked him through. I said, I'm going to back out the door, okay? I'm going to back out, and you're going to then leave. Everything's going to be just fine. And she said the guy kind of relaxed. It was like she was leading him through this. And not to say something awful necessarily would happen to her, but that kind of thing. An intense emotional encounter will keep the thing together. And the other guy went into one of our schools, a bank robbery, and the same story. Because the bank robber goes, get on the ground. And he said, I'm getting on the ground. He said, I can feel the bank robber relax. Okay. The bank robbers aren't real big on what are you talking about? What do you mean? Just came in to cash a check or whatever, So you're tuning in and people in their romantic lives. I got a story about that. People I say, in every exercise, in every moment, you're trying to empty the bucket and just say, get it out and get them to get you. This is really upsetting. This is so wonderful you did this to me. Whatever it might be, you're trying to get them to get you. And we have a ceremony at the end of the year for the people who do the program. And at the ceremony, actress was there who had been with me 5 years prior to this. And she said, hey, DW, that thing you say, empty the bucket. I got a story about that. And I had a date arranged. And so I talked to the guy for an hour on the phone, blind date. And then this was before FaceTime. And then she goes, and then canceled on me, left me a message and canceled on me. And normally I would have just, gulped and maybe had a pint of ice cream. But I said, no, I'm going to empty the bucket. So I called him up and I emptied the bucket. And then she yelled for effect and goes, we're married now.
Ooh.
So the guy's all all right, if it's that, okay, if it's that big a deal, we'll have some coffee. But, to get on the same page with another person. It really seems to be what it's about. It's this human need we have to be seen by another person. And, that's easier said than done in a world that's well, I'm not going to help things. I can feel and it makes you vulnerable to do that. That you're going to believe that you can get through to somebody. But that's the challenge, and this is why people get intoxicated in a way by the work, because it's so profound in that way. And it's just, anything you do, people are going to say you got to be in the moment, whether it's surfing or horseback riding or archery, right? Zen and archery. But archery and horseback riding don't come up necessarily that much anymore, whereas interacting with human beings does. But to be able to be in the moment with a person. Maybe you heard this thing where people say stars or they'll be the only person in the room. They have such good concentration on just being with you. Looking around the room, they're able to be present. That is this skill that's good to have.
Yeah. And the one thing that I always get when I talk to actors or I talk to acting coaches is that the more you learn acting, the more genuine you become. It's like the funniest contradiction. People think acting, I gotta pretend. No, you actually get more and more and more in tune the more you learn acting, reacting, whatever word should substitute for it. Acting, such a term that misleads people.
Yeah, so that's why people say I could act. I act all the time. I go, you're just a big liar. That's not what acting is. Acting is actually the opposite of that. Is to be as close to the truth as you can be.
Yeah.
And like little children, really bad liars. So there's an age at which is virtually impossible for children to lie. But that's again, the work is to get you back to that place where you're that pure. Something affects you, and it goes right through the system. It's expressed. There's like not such a separation between the world. Very much like there's an old vaudeville expression: "Don't act with animals or children," and they'll say that because they will steal the attention because they have purity. The dog is totally in the moment. You're not thinking about I'm a dog here on stage. It's an environment, right? There's connected in that way, as we probably are in reality. But so the consciousness is I'm just one with everything. This participation, the yang, the yin comes in, the yang comes cycling out. There's this participation in a fiction when you're an actor. But then you could bring that to your life too, whether it's sales or your romance or whatever it might be.
Yeah, this is very inspiring, DW. I'm really inspired. So, when you were talking about that reaction exercise earlier, the reason I kind of knew it but I didn't was because many years ago, almost 10 years ago, just randomly, it was like advertised on Facebook. So I tried it. This was in New York. I used to live in Philadelphia, and it was like a $20 get a sample Meisner course, right? And the way the guy taught it, to his credit, I don't think he was trying to teach everything in one lesson, but he didn't even get to the root of what you were teaching me. So that's why I was like, I knew about the repeating part, right? But we never even got to the place where, okay, not only do you repeat, you also put the emotion into it. You also put the he was almost trying to get us to not put emotional inflection, and maybe that's a previous iteration of it, but that's why it's like when I heard where that exercise was going to lead to, the way you instructed me, I'm like, that makes so much sense now, because the way I interpreted it, the way he taught it was like, it was just an exercise to learn to not be distracted, right? So like, I didn't get all the other components of it that you were just teaching me.
I have my attention on you, but not like a scientist taking note of what you're doing. I'm participating with you, right? But Meister has this expression I love. He said, the preparation, the emotional life should never alter your availability to respond. So I want to maybe get myself like really upset in a scene. Everybody I love was killed in a plane crash, something like that, but I'm still available to be participating in the world. I'm not all, oh, I'm so sad. I'm horribly sad. But then I noticed that you're wearing a tuxedo. And I'm like, you look ridiculous. Whereas if I hadn't had this event, I'd be, you look ridiculous. But I'm still available to participate in the world. And that's what is the distinction between the Strasberg work that I did a lot of with the actors, that typical troubled actor, and they're upset, but it's sort of self-contained. And then yes, but I need from you the money to get to my mom's funeral, or that I'm going to scatter her ashes in Paris, so I need the airfare, and so I have to participate. I can't be, I'm so sad about that I'm missing out on, no, what's the next thing for me? I'm very much an adherent of Stoic philosophy, and it's so consistent with that. It's like, yes, something bad has happened, but what are you going to do now? And it's not a disengage from it, but you let it pass through you, and you continue participating with the world. So I have an objective from you, but I'm not isolating. I need the money. I'm still participating with what I'm getting from you. And if you're wearing a tuxedo, it's different than let's say you have an eye patch on. Like, oh my God, what happened to you? And even though I'm coming from having just broken up with somebody, I'm still available. What, you have an eye injury of some kind? I'm still available. And that's what I think is the big deal about Meisner. What I think is so great about Meisner is, in a way, you seem like a hero immediately, like an animal's a hero, because they're not, self-conscious and self-pitying. They're participating. So if I have these feelings and then participate, then you really got something going.
Yeah. Wow. This is really, really just, it's blowing my mind, but it's almost like you're pointing to truths that everyone inherently knows, right? And that's what I'm learning from you, is that ultimately that's what acting is. I mean, you look at, like, I walk a lot of dogs just to get my mind off things, and you look at dogs don't go, oh yeah, yesterday you walked me, therefore this, they're in the moment, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, that's the ideal, and that's what becomes attractive to people, and then they can maybe live cathartically through you.
Yeah.
As you're in touch with these deep grooves, then they would never let themselves use, their mom's coldness. But when you react to it, they go, that is really bad when your mom is just a little cold. It is like a kind of knife in your heart. I'm always like, make a big deal out of things. I'm underplaying. We train, everybody, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make me feel like I'm a bad parent by being upset now. Everybody's like trying to squash you. And you get this cool, and the big kids are like, whatever. You gotta be like bored with everything. Wonderful. They're like, what a geek. So you're like, okay, I gotta play this game, downplaying everything, or isolating it, and cutting myself off of it. What we know is this room called the shadow, it's also called disowned parts of yourself, is it's still in there. It's still acting itself out, but just unconsciously and maybe not so healthily. You might as well get it out there, right? And that's what the job of an actor is maybe give these people a moment of, yes, that is what it's like to have that feeling. And then they can be a little bit more free, perhaps in their own lives.
My last question, because, we've been talking about acting methods, we've been talking about, are there any actors or actresses you recommend for people, whether casually or they're more serious about acting, to kind of watch and study how they do, whether on stage or in movies, etc.? I mean, of course, watch DW, and watch Joanne Baron, but who else? Who else?
The greatest actor, well, Leonardo DiCaprio still is like absolutely a phenomenal top drawer actor. Actors that you may not know, I mentioned Michael Shannon. Actors you may not know, unsung actors, who would be Tom Hardy. He's not really that unsung, but he's just a phenomenal actor. Jessica Chastain, incredible actress. She didn't study our technique, but still, what we'll say is that all good acting pretty much comes. It looks identical. You may have studied external and then started to appreciate the interior life, or just through the habit of working off another person, you get more and more strong in that way. Who else would I say? Mark Ruffalo's an amazing actor, but maybe isn't as regarded as I think he ought to be. There's a few people. We'd love to see people come down here if they want to give it a shot. We start with just a 6 weeks class, so you don't have
6 weeks.
Sometimes people hear like a 2-year training program. It's not like you agree, to get an acting part. And unlike maybe some scene study classes, you get good at a scene, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the rest of your acting. I say any work you do running this obstacle course makes you better as an actor. Every time you do it, you're just a little bit incrementally better as an actor.
Yeah.
So even if you had to drop out, which you have to happen, people leave and they'll come back and pick up where they left off. And some people will repeat it. Justin Chong did the training twice. Justin, Korean film director, writer, wonderful actor. He acted in Blue Bayou as well. So again, it's just an essential kind of thing. Anything you do here is gonna put you just a little bit further ahead, or maybe a lot ahead, because you can have breakthroughs at any moment. I never know. People say, will you tell me if I'm talented to do W? I go, I can't, because we just haven't watered that seed. You can be super talented, but nobody ever nurtured this thing, and then suddenly, it's producing just remarkable things. And people come and you think, people I know better now, but people are like, I didn't think this guy was ever going to get good. And then suddenly, like within like 2-3 classes, he's just like kicking everybody's ass. Because it isn't like other kinds of pursuits. It is a freeing process, the whole beginning. So who knows when you could just lift that cover off, and then a person has permission to fully come alive. which is what it's about. I'm big on quotes. The quote will leave you with this. It says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Don't ask what the world needs. Come alive. So what the world really needs is more alive people."
Yeah, that's a great quote, man. It's a great quote. So we have a great interview, D.W. Brown, and in the future, let's get Joanne Baron too. Let's get your wife on in the future. Definitely, I would love to figure out some ways to collab that potentially have martial arts and acting. Especially, I'm pretty into Aikido, and there might be some components, especially you're talking about the shadow and all that. Like, there's some interpretations of Aikido that really think about stuff like that. So I know there's definitely a lot of potential collab we can do in the future. So we'll talk about all this, but that's a teaser for potential stuff for the future. Love to do some jiu-jitsu stuff too in the future. So yeah, we have a lot of great stuff to follow up, but thank you, DW. And of course, if they wanted to find you guys in Santa Monica, already told. Now, do you guys offer like video courses, or it's in person for now?
We were doing Skype and training people in Paris even before the pandemic. But when the pandemic, COVID-19 hit, we went to just only Zoom. And again, it's amazing, this technique. People will able to get better because it's just this technical thing. I can tell you what you need to do, and this person has this problem. This person has this problem, and I can tell you what you need to do to get better. Even over the internet. So I got a guy in Dublin I taught on Sunday. Somebody else from Poland I'm teaching, so all over the place. A lot of New Yorkers taking the training. So yes, absolutely. We have a full Zoom presence now here.
I see. That's perfect. So people, there's no reason not to do a 6-weeker. Either in person or via Zoom, or as the world opens up, probably you guys are going to do classes in Paris or wherever, and other cities too. So that's to look forward to too in the future. Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Jerry.